President are back already, and we have a brand new single, and it's called Angel Wings. And if you can't tell, I am quite excited. I was not expecting it to come out this quickly. We had the King of Terrors EP that came out late last year. It was 6 tracks, and they were amazing. I obsessed over President in a way that I've not obsessed with a new band over for quite a long time. It's just like fun to get swept up in all the mystery from the download lineup announcement all the way through to, you know, people pretty much figuring out who the President is, even though for the sake of any reaction content I do, I am going to continue to refer to him as the President. It just feels like we should all buy into it. You're going to participate in the theatricality. It's just kind of a bit naysayery if you're going to get too down in the minutiae on that one. So the President has said that that first 6-track EP was like a kind of a proof of concept almost, right? Like he wrote a couple of those songs before the sort of concept of President and the masks and all of that really became a thing, and it's sort of a way for him to kind of emotionally discharge, because this person is already, you know, comparatively famous in the sort of music industry. So it was a way to kind of like, by covering himself, he was able to be more genuine, which I actually really respect. I've listened to a few interviews where they've talked about it now, and I think I really have come to appreciate his point of view there. So either way, this is clearly a passion project, but like all passion projects, all side projects of various types, you wonder just how much time the frontman, the key writers, that kind of stuff actually can afford to spend on them. You know, you get an Eagles of Death Metal where they release one album every like 8 years or something like that, or like a Pussifer have just released a new album. It's kind of one of those ones where it's difficult to gauge just how much, I guess, yeah, time everyone has for this one, but they currently are doing their tour. I've spoken to people who've been to their gigs. God, I know somebody who paid like 180 quid, I think he said it was, to get to the Garage gig in London, where they only had like 5 tracks out at the time. I think they did a cover of a Deftones song, though, which does sound quite cool, but those tickets were like £20 retail that are sold out instantly. I literally, within my small town in England, I met somebody in person, a stranger, who I recognised was wearing a Fight Star t-shirt, and he said that he'd spent X amount of money going. I think it's quite clever of them to stay small scale too, you know, like to start with, we're doing small venues. It's so much better to sort of sell out and have more demand with like a 300 person venue rather than trying to sell out a 5,000 one, and you don't. The President did say after that he was going to immediately go back and start writing a full album. The King of Terrors EP was going to stay, you know, a 6-tracker, one piece of work, and we're going to move on to the next chapter, which I thought might take a while considering various other engagements and the touring, but it turns out he cannot contain himself. And I am also curious to see whether or not stylistically this will stay the sort of same, because I feel like with the King of Terrors EP you had 2 fairly distinct kind of like subsets of them. You've got the more experimental ones, the slightly more hip-hop inspired ones, maybe songs like Rage, where they were kind of a bit more experimental, I think is the word I'm going to go with. And then you've got the other side of that, where you have your Fearlesses and In the Name of the Fathers, which are way heavier. They've got this more kind of like post-new metal. I have seen an interview with the President where he did say that the comparison between them and Sleep Token is fucking lazy. That's the quote. And I get it, because, yeah, mass band, same production company, whatever. But I do think that the way that they combine some of the sort of hip-hop influences into the like really kind of heavy metalcore stuff, they're not the furthest bands apart from each other, but I can see why it's maybe an annoying comparison when you're trying to make it out on your own. But either way, I'm curious to see whether or not, with a little gap and some more maturity and maybe the sort of seeing which songs do well, whether or not this will sort of manifest itself in a change in musical style, or whether or not it's just going to be more of the same. Either way, I'm happy. I'm just excited that there's more content for this already. I love the videos. They're mostly like comparatively like low budget. Like apparently the singer went out and filmed at least a couple of them with pretty much just a mate and a camera. Knowing who the President is, it's probably a nice mate and a nice camera, but even still, I quite like that it's comparatively low-fi, right? People have been saying that maybe they're industry plants and they have bucked against that very strongly, and I do think that's kind of unfair. If you start a new musical project but you've got existing connections, you don't have to just abandon the connections for the sake of your musical integrity. Why wouldn't you use the leg up you spent the rest of your life building? So anyway, I have waffled enough. I'm very excited, so let's just jump in and listen to Angel Wings. Okay. Immediately going to start sort of going into the lore, the ethos about why the mask is there. It's cool. I mean, you can't explain it in a better way than that. I wonder if it's a different variation of the mask too. Okay. God, I was not expecting the vocals to come in so quickly. I think it's quite rare for President songs for the vocals to come in that fast. And like, cleanly too. I know that this is something that a lot of people had, well, I was going to say a lot of people have issues with. I think it was quite divisive within the community, the vocal effects they were putting on his voice for the majority of the King of Terrors. There's loads of kind of auto-tuney stuff and pitch shifting and stuff like that, which I personally came to actually quite like, but this is remarkably pure. On top of, again, like quite a reduced to start with, kind of like hip-hop inspired drum beat to kind of push us in. I'm already invested. Also, Scary Lady on a Chair.
I come with a target, man. No need to shoot it now. I'm not infectious yet. Shit.
Yeah. It's the fucking mouth, man. I love it, but it's so like unsettling. The way that the mask sort of almost, like from a distance, you would almost believe it was a real face, right? And also knowing that the lead singer has in fact got some quite distinctive front teeth, knowing that those are not real. Those are not real front teeth. In fact, I saw people all commenting on Reddit, or maybe it's YouTube, one or the other, saying that like you could see in the live shows him wrestling with the false teeth occasionally, which must be a nightmare to do live. But no, I'm quite liking this. It's definitely in keeping within the style. I mean, I guess maybe the voice carries a lot of that, but it's in keeping with the style so far. But it's kind of more suppressed, kind of got this build-up feeling to it. I'm definitely invested.
I'm not infectious yet.
There it is. Ooh. Oh, okay, so that's kind of interesting. It had a tempo, or not a tempo slowdown, but it went halftime. I was expecting they added a couple of extra synth layers as they're going on, and it had these like synth lines kind of building up, and then you could tell, little drop out, and we're going to hit something heavy, we're going to get that heavy guitar. I was expecting it to maintain the pace, and nope, it's actually gone into halftime. It kind of slows it down, makes it feel more epic, more kind of like big feeling. Oh, I love it. I love it. There's something about the president's sort of pseudo-screaming voice. He does it a lot in the chorus for The Name of the Father as well, where he like brings it up into that higher echelon and he shouts, but it's pure. But the angst and the feeling that comes through there, they're kind of like just the perfect amount of vocal fry. It makes me shiver, honestly. It's part of this kind of like deep felt passion that I find infectious about President. Awesome. Also gonna say, I find this chorus to sort of remind me more of some sort of like Britpop / post-Britpop era. Like I'm getting like a bit of Radiohead in there. I'm getting a little bit of Muse maybe. Just the way that his vocal line kind of like sits over those very heavy drums and the guitar, and it kind of like that extended kind of like vocal line that has all that kind of nuanced pattern towards the end of the phrase. It makes me think of that in a very good way. I mean, I'm a big fan of their music too, so more influences please. Nice. The drums there are really, really important too. I guess the rhythm section, the way that they sort of slow down, you get the da 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 dong, and then you have that little gap there. It doesn't quite, it disperses your expectations very effectively. Just little moments of dropouts for a second, just slight rhythmic shake-ups every now and then really keep it fresh and interesting. God, the drum line is extremely expansive in this. There's a load of interesting sort of like different instruments. It's like a real live drum kit mixed in with a sort of digital synth one with some other kind of like, I'm just going to say a handshake. That's not quite right. But you know what I mean? The drum tones are really, really interesting, which is quite strange because they're very rigid, but the vocals are far more conversational. And I'm still getting used to him singing kind of like purely. It's quite nice, I think, to hear his voice without that many effects on it. I'm wondering whether or not this is going to be like a stylistic pivot for President, or whether or not this is a one-off for this song, or whatever, something in between. What's that?
My God.
Ah.
Why have you forsaken me?
That's kind of interesting. That's definitely new as well. I don't think there was any string lines in the King of Terrors at all. Just adding new instruments to the sort of lineup. It's like everything is kind of expanded a bit. Maybe the proof of concept has proven the concept, and now, I mean, I think they signed a record label comparatively recently, if I'm not mistaken. So perhaps, you know, more budget, more time, because also the sets are way more grandiose. So you've got multiple shots, big external house. I mean, just the detail of what we can see there, where in the background of above the desk that the president was sitting at, there is another picture of the president. I think maybe even one of them that might even be from In the Name of the Father, the music video. Either way, just the attention to detail, stuff like that, it's just on a much bigger scale. You've got this female, well, I don't know if it's going to be a vocalist, but this female voice now doing a kind of like monologue over the top of it. Everything is more, boom, awesome. It's kind of interesting. So the lyric, "Can I hide under your angel wings?" I've also heard the president talk in some interviews about some of the sort of feelings that maybe kickstarted his need to create this new project. And interestingly, part of it was, I was going to say midlife crisis. That's not quite right. But reaching a point in one's life where you start to really have to interact with the idea of mortality. So using this kind of like biblical imagery, I've literally heard him say that that's kind of like part of the point. It's all together. He had a religious upbringing, and it's kind of like becoming a good way for him to come to terms with death and the sort of impermanence of stuff, which I think is really obvious with this song specifically. The analogy is even more overt than something like referring to the King of Terrors, which I believe is a biblical way of describing the devil. That scream is so good. Ooh. Okay. I guess I should have expected it to be stylistically interesting, but the big sound dropping out completely and being replaced by this kind of synth bass line for a second, it's a very big contrast. God. What an interesting section. I feel like the vocal line has more or less stayed the same from the previous verse, but what's going underneath it is so much more. It's like running like a counter rhythm at some point as well. Like, they've really done a good job of sort of almost detaching the vocals from this kind of hard line beat, which I'm assuming means when it does all come back together and it escalates a little bit more, it's going to be that much more rewarding.
Love me anyway.
Ooh. Oh, I like that. God, there's just something about his screaming tone that, again, this gives me goose pimples. God, that was amazing. The little drop off, the like, again, the sort of like very, very introspective, like literally talking about wearing a mask and how that doesn't let you escape a previous life. And then just, I thought maybe you could tell a big hit was coming, right? You could tell there was going to be a big heavy break, but I wasn't expecting it to get led by the scream. Awesome. What a massive breakdown. This is the mosh pit section. I cannot wait one day to try and just get tickets to see them live. Ooh. Is that a woo? Fun. Wow. So discordant as well, like so staccato. The kind of tones being used on the guitar there were like intentionally a little bit, there's like a kind of like pull off there on the strings that was like intentionally a little bit dissonant. It's very clever. There's a lot of moving parts in this song, but they all bleed together really nicely. Yeah, nice. Okay, and then kind of like a fade out outro with a kind of interesting synth line kind of nipping in the back. Oh man, I really enjoyed that. I really, really did. They managed to do everything I kind of hoped. They maintain a lot of what I found to be the most sort of like appealing aspects of President. The really heavy breaks, the kind of interesting rhythmic sections, the sort of like combination of this really heavy metal screamo stuff with more kind of angsty, maybe a bit more emo-y things with like full hip-hop influence as well, and they managed to capture everything that made that stuff interesting, but it felt like it was on a bigger scale. The soundscape was bigger, there were more instruments. His vocals, I think, were the most interesting point of change comparatively to King of Terrors, because they've definitely intentionally left them much cleaner. Like I said, I'm curious to see whether that will end up being a trait for the entirety of this album, or whether or not that was a one-off for this song or a couple of songs. I mean, God, like literally, did he just look on the Reddit and go, this was an idea, it's kind of controversial enough that maybe we should just bin off the auto-tune. I don't know, it's kind of an interesting shift, but I like that a lot. The way that he was able to skip between those sections of like super, super heavy, I think that's just part of their appeal across the board, but just so well executed. His voice just, it feels so pure to me. I don't know whether or not it's because I've seen enough interviews with the president now to really kind of feel like I have a comparatively good idea of his mindset going into this project. So it just really feels like genuine through the soul. The whole thing is just so earnest, I think is possibly the word I'm looking for, and I really, really appreciate that when something is so tangible. Music video wise, I think it was a big step up. I found the production to be higher, more interesting. The sets were kind of interesting. This big house, there's like little prop things like having the president like money currency there on fire, and the picture of him behind the mask is still as unnerving as ever. I can't figure out whether or not I like it when he has the lips covered or not. Either way, I think part of its unsettling nature is really part of its appeal too. So that was great. Just visually interesting. All the imagery, the stuff with the angels. It was well shot. It was well edited. Like, it just feels like everything is stepping up. Like, we've all figured out that there is a fan base there. There is a audience of people who will like it. I mean, this came out yesterday. 122,000 views is not bad, considering that they haven't even got an album yet. They announced themselves to the world last year, and they're already on their kind of like second, I was going to say album cycle. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Either way, I really appreciate it. I'm glad they got momentum. I loved it. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? I'm very curious to see what the take on the vocal tone is specifically, but yeah, what do you think of it compared to the earlier King of Terror stuff? Let me know in the comments. If you like the video and you want to see more coverage, because I will definitely be jumping on anything president as and when I see it, then please consider giving me a subscription. It helps grow the channel and get my videos in front of your eyes. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!